The wind pushed hard against the old trading post on Merchant Street, as if trying to knock it off its foundation. Inside, Minerva Hartwell sat over her father's ledger, her fingers stiff from hours of adding numbers that never seemed to end. The oil lamps gave the room a warm glow, but nothing eased the tight ache in her back or the pounding in her head. She was only 32, but the people of Silver Ridge whispered she looked older, worn, used up, a woman who had been promised a future and handed nothing but loss. Outside, the October wind rattled the windows. Inside, her life felt just as brittle. She rubbed her temples and tried to focus on the accounts, but the words of the townspeople kept crowding her thoughts. Barren, cursed. Poor woman. She pressed a hand to the thin gold band still circling her left ring finger. She had worn it for years longer than she had worn the marriage itself. Thomas Hartwell had promised her children, love, and a home filled with laughter. Instead, she spent 3 years counting silent months, waiting for life that never started. Then one morning he left without a note, taking half their savings and every last piece of hope she had left. She never took the ring off. Leaving it felt like admitting she was broken. The door chimed, snapping her back. Councilman Bramwell Mortimer stepped inside with the self-importance of a man who believed the whole world needed his advice. His silver chain swung across his large belly as he walked toward her. "Miss Hartwell," he said. She forced a polite nod. "Councilman." He removed his hat slowly, the way a man does when he wants a woman to think he respects her. "I've spoken with several business owners. We're worried about you." Her jaw tightened. "I'm managing the post just fine. That's the problem," he said. "You're working too hard. A woman alone shouldn't carry a burden this heavy." He gestured at the shelves she stocked, the goods she negotiated for, the entire life she kept afloat with her own hands. "You need rest." She stared at him, stunned. "Rest? I've hired 2 men to take over your duties for 6 months, he continued. "You'll return to your mother's ranch, effective Monday." The words hit her like a blow. He was taking her father's legacy away, her work, her pride, her purpose. "You had no right," she said. "I had every right," he replied, the false kindness slipping from his voice. "This is final." He left before she could speak again, the door chiming like a cruel laugh. For a long moment, Minerva stood still. Then her hands shook. Her breath came shallow. The trading post smelled like her father's pipe smoke, like the life she had built through tears and grit. Now it was all slipping away. 3 days later, with 2 saddlebags and a heart full of humiliation, she rode toward her mother's ranch. The October sky stretched gray above her, mirroring the emptiness inside. When she reached the valley where cottonwood trees lined the creek, she found the ranch smaller than she remembered, weaker. Sagging fences, peeling paint, and a house that held memories she wasn't ready to face. Her mother rushed out to greet her with a fierce embrace, lavender soap and wood smoke wrapped around her like a childhood blanket. Minerva let herself be held for one moment before pulling back, already ashamed of her own need. "You look tired," her mother said. "You need rest." Everyone said it. Everyone thought they knew her weakness. Inside the house, everything was exactly as she remembered. Her father's rocking chair, the old family pictures on the mantel, her childhood quilt laid out on her bed. It should have comforted her. Instead, it made her chest ache. She heard voices outside and moved toward the window. Her mother spoke warmly to a teenage boy carrying water buckets. Edric Patterson, her mother explained later, the son of a widow renting the old foreman's cabin. The ranch needed help, and rent money kept them afloat. Guilt burned through Minerva. She should have helped. She should have been here. But she'd been drowning in Silver Ridge, and now she was drowning here too. Days passed slowly. She paced the ranch, noticing every broken hinge and failing fence. Everything looked like it was falling apart, just like her. She snapped at the boy one afternoon for spilling water on her boots, and his hurt expression haunted her. Her mother confronted her gently. "You're hurting, but you can't take it out on others." Minerva retreated to her room, staring at the ring she still couldn't remove. "Good God, Pamela!" She wasn't resting. She was disappearing. On the sixth morning, she woke with a spark of determination she hadn't felt in months. She dressed, grabbed the wagon reins, and headed into Silver Ridge. She needed to breathe. She needed to feel something other than shame. The town was busy with merchants, wagons, and chatter. She stepped toward Morrison's general store and collided with someone coming out. Strong hands caught her arms. "You all right?" She looked up. Blue eyes, sun-darkened skin, a crooked smile that carried 15 years of memories. "Maneuver Hartwell," he said, grinning. "Didn't expect you to nearly knock me over today." Her breath caught. "Lee Graver? Is that really you?" He had grown taller, broader, more confident. The boy she'd raced to the creek had become a man who looked at her with something warm and familiar. "I go by Lee now," he said. "And you look different." "So do you," she managed. He laughed softly. "Good to see you again, Minnie." The old nickname hit her harder than she expected. A piece of her past she thought she had buried stirred awake. Before she could respond, someone called his name from across the street. He tipped his hat lightly. "Don't be a stranger," he said. "We've got catching up to do." He walked away, leaving her standing on the boardwalk with her heart beating faster than it had in years. For the first time in a long time, she felt something other than exhaustion. She felt alive. The next few days passed in a slow, uneasy rhythm. Minerva tried to settle back into ranch life, but her thoughts kept drifting to the man she had run into on Merchant Street, Lee Graver. The boy who used to challenge her to climb the tallest cottonwood. The boy who teased her endlessly, then defended her fiercely when anyone else dared to try. The boy who had left at 16 and returned as a man who unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. By Saturday, she found herself standing outside the Silver Ridge Community Church, telling herself she was here to volunteer for the Harvest Festival preparations. She told herself it had nothing to do with Lee, but her heart knew better. Inside the church basement, chaos reigned. Crates of decorations, boxes of lanterns, lumber for booths, and mismatched kitchenware filled the room. 3 volunteers worked near the far wall, but Lee stood alone at the stairs, checking items off a list with a pencil between his teeth. He looked up when she entered. A slow smile formed. "Well, I'll be. You actually came." "I said maybe," she answered, trying to sound firm. And maybe turned into yes. "Best news I've had all week." Together they worked for hours. Manuva organized supplies into neat rows, labeled boxes, and assigned categories. Lee hauled heavy crates, dusted his hands off on his pants, and joked his way through every task. Working beside him felt natural, easy, almost like coming home to a friend she'd forgotten she needed. As the hours passed, he coaxed memories from her with gentle teasing. She remembered him daring her to jump from Widow's Point. He remembered her beating him in every creek race. "You scared the life out of me that day," Lee said, stacking tablecloths neatly. "You vanished underwater. I thought you hit your head." "I was holding my breath to scare you," she said. He stopped what he was doing and stared at her. "You mean I nearly drowned diving after you and you were playing a prank?" "You forgot to take off your boots," she reminded him. He shook his head, pretending to be offended, but his grin gave him away. For the first time in weeks, Minerva laughed. A real laugh, one that surprised her as much as him. Something softened in his expression when he heard it. "I missed that sound," he said quietly. The words settled deep in her chest. By the time they finished, the basement looked transformed. The other volunteers had long gone, leaving the two of them alone in the warm lamplight. "You're a miracle worker," Lee said. "This place looks like an actual plan now. You'd have figured it out. Not like this, and not with this much fun." He walked her to her wagon in the fading evening light. Their shoulders almost brushed as they walked. "I heard what happened," he said suddenly, "with Mortimer, with the council, forcing you out of the trading post." Her breath caught. "Town gossip travels fast. It shouldn't have been done. You built that place after your father passed. You kept it alive. They had every right," she murmured. "I'm just a woman who couldn't even give her husband a child." Lee stopped walking. His jaw tightened. "That's what you think?" he asked softly. "That's why he left?" She kept her eyes on the ground. It's the truth. No, he said firmly. Your husband was a fool. Leaving was his failure, not yours. You are enough. More than enough. He just couldn't see it. His voice was steady, warm, carrying a conviction she didn't feel she deserved. Her eyes stung. She didn't want to cry in front of him, so she stepped back. Thank you, she whispered. For today. It helped. Come back next week, he said. There's always more to sort. Maybe. I'll take it. The next week she returned. Then again and again. They spent long afternoons in the basement, sorting lanterns, decorations, and supplies. They spent evenings walking the creek path or sitting on her mother's porch, talking until the stars came out. Silver Ridge noticed, of course. Whispers followed her everywhere, but for the first time she didn't feel crushed by them. She felt seen. On Thursday, Lee took her to his uncle's pasture to help pick livestock for the auction. The sunset painted everything in gold as he challenged her with a grin. "Want to ride him?" he asked, pointing at a tall bay gelding. Bareback. You used to do it all the time. Before she could protest, he helped her onto the horse. Then he swung up behind her, his chest warm against her back, his arms around her as he gathered the reins. "Relax," he murmured. "I am," she lied. "Liar," he chuckled. As the horse carried them across the field, she felt her breath slow. For the first time in a long time, her body wasn't tight with worry. The sunset glowed ahead of them. Lee's hands rested steady over hers. His voice was soft near her ear. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "And you're not broken. Not to me." Her throat tightened. She didn't trust her voice. Later, after they returned the horse and walked toward the barn, Lee stopped her gently. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. She hesitated. He waited. "Yes," she finally said. His smile was warm. "Good. I look forward to it." By Saturday, the day before the harvest festival, they were loading the wagon with supplies when he grinned at her with that old spark of mischief. "Race you to the festival grounds." She laughed. "We're adults now." Scared you'll lose? That was all it took. They raced down the dusty road, laughing like they were kids again. The wagon bounced wildly, her hair blew loose, and Lee's horse galloped beside her. She beat him by half a length. When she climbed down, her foot caught in her skirt and she stumbled straight into his arms. They froze, her hands on his chest, his hands steady on her waist, his eyes locked on hers, blue as the Colorado sky. "Minnie," he breathed. "Don't call me that," she whispered. But she didn't pull away. "Why do you still wear that ring?" he asked softly. Her heart thudded painfully. "Because taking it off makes everything real. You deserve better than the pain you're carrying," he said. "Let me show you that." When she didn't step back, he leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to refuse. She didn't. The kiss was soft at first. Then her hand slid up around his neck, and years of loneliness broke open inside her. Lee pulled her closer, kissing her with the kind of hunger that felt like truth. When they pulled apart, both breathless, he whispered against her forehead, "Come with me, please, just for tonight." Her heart ached with fear and wanting. "Where?" she whispered. "The cabin by the creek, just us." A lifetime of caution told her to refuse, but hope, fierce and trembling, guided her instead. She nodded. The abandoned cabin sat tucked between tall cottonwoods, half hidden from any trail. When Lee lit the small lamp inside, the warm glow settled over the rough wooden walls and the narrow bed pushed against the far side. Minerva hesitated near the door, her breath uneven. The courage she had felt on the ride here wavered, now that they were alone. Lee noticed immediately.
"We don't have to stay," he said quietly.
"Say the word, and I'll take you home. No questions, no judgment." She shook her head. "I don't want to go back." He walked toward her slowly, giving her space to change her mind. When he reached her, he cupped her face gently, his hands rough but his touch soft. "Then I'm going to treat you the way you deserve," he murmured, not out of pity, not out of obligation, but because I want you, Minnie. "I've always wanted you," she swallowed hard, her heart pounding. "You barely know me anymore." "I know enough," he said. "I know you've carried too much alone. I know you've forgotten how it feels to be cared for. And I know you deserve more than life ever gave you." Her chest tightened at the sincerity in his voice. When he kissed her, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't demanding. It was tender, steady, and full of a longing she had never allowed herself to hope for. She kissed him back, trembling. What happened next was slow and gentle, nothing like her cold marriage or the painful memories she carried. Lee traced her shoulders, her back, her cheek, learning her with careful reverence. He whispered that she was beautiful, that she was enough, that nothing about her was broken. For the first time in years, she believed it. When they lay together afterward, breaths quieting, tears slipped down her temples. Lee lifted himself on one elbow, worry tightening his features. "Did I hurt you?" "No," she whispered, laughing softly through tears. "You made me feel alive again." Relief washed over him. He kissed her forehead and pulled her close. "Good, because I meant every word I said tonight." They stayed in each other's arms for a long time, speaking in soft whispers. When he finally had to leave, he kissed her again, slow and certain. "This isn't just tonight, Minnie. Not for me. I'm courting you properly from here on out." Her breath caught. "People will talk. Let them," he said. "You matter more than their gossip ever will." Over the next weeks, the rumors spread through Silver Ridge like wildfire. Minerva pretended not to care, but she walked differently now, her shoulders straighter, her eyes brighter. Lee visited the ranch every evening, officially to help with repairs, but everyone knew the truth. He came for her. She found herself smiling more, laughing more, feeling something she had almost forgotten: hope. Even her mother noticed. "You're happier," Philomena said one night. "That boy sees you in a way no one else ever has." Minerva didn't admit it aloud, but she knew it was true. About 5 weeks after their night at the cabin, Lee invited her on a picnic by the river. They sat on a blanket beneath the sun, talking about small things: horses, weather, memories of childhood. She was mid-sentence when Lee bit into a piece of garlic sausage. The smell hit her before she realized what was happening. Her stomach lurched. Violent nausea shot through her, and she stumbled toward the bushes, retching. Lee rushed to her side, holding her hair back, murmuring steady reassurances. When the sickness passed, she sat trembling on her heels. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know what came over me." Lee knelt beside her, eyes searching hers. "Minnie, when was your last monthly course?" The world seemed to tilt. She tried to think, counting days, counting weeks, but nothing made sense. "I don't know," she whispered. "We're going to the doctor," Lee said firmly. "Tomorrow." No arguments. The next day, Dr. Willoughby listened carefully as she described her symptoms: the nausea, the tiredness, the missed cycles she hadn't noticed through the haze of emotion and change. He examined her, then sat back with a thoughtful expression. "Mrs. Hartwell," he said gently, "you are about 4 weeks along. Congratulations." Her world stopped. "That's impossible," she whispered. The doctor smiled. "It's quite possible. Your body isn't broken, my dear. Sometimes it simply needs the right partner, or the right piece." Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. She pressed her hand over her mouth as the truth settled in her chest like warm sunlight. Outside the clinic, Lee waited on the boardwalk, pacing. When he saw her tearful expression, he rushed forward. "Well," he breathed. She laughed and cried all at once. "I'm pregnant." Lee went still, completely still. Then, with a joyful shout, he swept her into his arms and spun her around. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair, "for this miracle." 3 weeks later, beneath lanterns strung between cottonwoods, Lee knelt and offered her a simple gold band. "Marry me, Minnie," he said. "Let's build a life where nothing and no one makes you feel small again." She said yes, crying and laughing until her voice broke. They married soon after in the small white chapel on the hill. Lee never left her side, not during the wedding, not during the whispers. Not during the joyful years that followed as their family grew and their ranch prospered. Minerva, once called barren, held 8 children in her arms over the next 14 years, each one a living proof that hope could return to even the deepest wounds. And every night, when she and Lee stood on their porch watching their children run across the field, she whispered the same teasing line that had started it all. "I knew I was fertile the night you went in deep and drained all my strength." Lee always laughed, kissed her forehead, and replied, "Best night of my life." Because it was, for both of them.